Very good. Good afternoon, everyone. Before we begin, I would just like to welcome all of you here to our synagogue, Shari Shalom. I'm sorry that we have to meet under these circumstances, but be that as it may, on behalf of our congregation, the president and the wards of the directors of the synagogue, it is my honor to welcome all of you here this afternoon. I'd like you all to stand with me as we begin with our opening prayer. God is the source of life, the fountain of all good. He has given us dear ones, and we rejoice in their love, grow strong through their care, and are ennobled by their influence. He has also fixed an end for life and earthly companionship. Oftentimes we cannot fathom his purpose, yet we trust in him. Though the longing within us seems more than we can bear, we know that our grief is according to our blessings. The sorrow of separation is the inevitable price of days and years of precious love. Tears are the tender tribute of yearning affection for those who have passed away but cannot be forgotten. You may be seated, and service can be followed in our synagogue prayer book, if you have one, on page 12 with responsive reading. A Psalm of David. Ascribe unto the Lord, O ye sons of the mighty. Ascribe unto the Lord glory and power. The voice of the Lord is upon the waters. The God of glory thundereth. The Lord is upon mighty waters. The voice of the Lord breaketh the cedars. Yea, the Lord shivereth the cedars of Lebanon. The voice of the Lord flasheth flames of fire. The voice of the Lord causes the oaks to shake and maketh the forest bare, while in his temple everything says glory. The Lord will give strength unto his people. The Lord will bless his people with peace. I asked Marie to recite a psalm for us.
Psalm 49, to the musician by the sons of Korah, a hymn. Hear this, all you nations. Listen, all inhabitants of the decaying world, both sons of Adam and sons of man, rich and poor together. My mouth will speak wise things, and the meditation of my heart is understanding. I will incline my ear to a parable. I will solve my riddle with a harp. Why should I be afraid in days of evil? The sin I trod upon will surround me. Those who rely on their possessions and in their great wealth take pride. A brother will not redeem a man. He will not give God his ransom. For exorbitant is the redemption of their soul, so he forsakes it forever. Yet would that he live on unto eternity, and not see the bottomless pit. For he sees that wise men die, both fool and brute perish, and leave to others their possessions. Inwardly they think that their houses are forever, their dwellings for every generation. They have proclaimed their names throughout the lands. But man, in splendor will he not endure. He's likened to animals that are silenced. This is their way, folly is theirs, yet their descendants with their mouths do approve, Selah. Like sheep toward Sheol are they headed, Death will shepherd them, and the upright will rule over them in the morning. And their form will rot in Sheol, each from his abode. But God will redeem my soul from the grasp of Sheol, for he will take me, Selah. Fear not when a man grows rich, when the glory of his house increases. For when he dies, he will not take anything. His glory will not descend after him. Though in his lifetime did he bless himself, others will bless you if you better yourself. When you come to the generation of his fathers, unto eternity will they not see light. Man is in splendor, but understands not. He's like animals that are silenced. But God will redeem my soul from the grasp of Sheol, for he will take me, Selah.
Service can now continue with responsive reading on page 14 of our prayer book. The Lord reigneth, clothed with majesty. The Lord is clothed and hath girded himself with power. The world is also established that it cannot be moved. The flood, O Lord, raise themselves up. They lift up their voice, and the flood raise up their waves.
They mighty than the voice of many mighty waters, and the billows of the ocean are covered high.
Thy testimonies are most faithful. Holiness beseemeth thy temple, O Lord, unto the utmost of days. Ask the congregation to stand. Baraku et Adonai Hamevorach. Bless ye the Lord, who is ever blessed.
Baruch Adonai, Hamevorach, well and wide.
Blessed be the Lord, who is blessed forever and ever. You may be seated. Let us continue together. For those who do not have a program, just meditate and listen to my voice. Blessed art thou, O Lord, King of the universe, who by thy word causes the evening to advance, with wisdom openest the gates of heaven, and with understanding changes times and various the seasons, and disposes their stars and the stations in the sky according to thy will. Thou createst day and night, causes the light to recede from before the darkness, and the darkness before the light. Thou causest the day to pass away, and bringest on the night, and makest a division between day and night. The Lord of hosts is thy name. Blessed art thou, O Lord, who bringest on this evening twilight. With everlasting love, as thou loved the house of Israel thy people, a law and commandments, statutes and judgments hast thou taught us. Therefore, O Lord our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will discourse of thy statutes. We will rejoice and exalt in instructive words of thy Torah, commandments and statutes forever and ever. For they are our life and the prolongation of our days, and on them will we meditate day and night. May thy love never depart from us. Blessed art thou, O Lord, who lovest thy people Israel. Once again I ask the congregation to stand as we recite the Shema, or age-old blessings, on page 15. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Baruch Shem Kevod Malkuto Leolam Vayeh. Blessed be his name, whose glorious kingdom is forever and ever.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Vayeh. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושמנמתם לבניך ודיברת בם, ושבתך בביתך ובלסך בדרך, ובשכבך ובחומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, וחיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזותיך ובשריך.
And the English translation to that most awesome chant. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And these words which I command you this day shall be in thy heart. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and thou shalt speak of them when thou sittest in thy house, when thou walkest by the way, when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy hand, and they shall be for frontlets between thine eyes. And thou shalt write them upon the doorpost of thy house and upon thy gates. You may be seated. And it shall come to pass, if ye shall hearken diligently unto my commandments, which I command you this day, to love the Lord your God, and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, that I will give the rain of your land in its due season, the former rain and the latter rain, that thou mayest gather in thy corn and thy wine and thy oil. And I will give grass in thy fields for thy cattle, and thou shalt eat and be satisfied. Take heed to yourselves, lest your heart be deceived, and ye turn aside and serve other gods and worship them. And the anger of the Lord will be kindled against you, and he will shut up the heaven that there be no rain, and the land will not yield her fruit, and ye perish quickly from off the goodly land which the Lord giveth you. Therefore shall ye lay up these my words in your heart and in your soul, and you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be for frontlets between your eyes, and you shall teach them to your children, talking of them when thou sittest in thy house, when thou walkest by the way, when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. And thou shalt write them upon the doorpost of thy house and upon thy gates, that your days may be multiplied, and the days of your children, upon the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers to give them, as the days of the heavens are above the earth. We now continue with another Hebrew chant of Vayomir, and that can be found on page 70. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor, leber ben Israel ben amata lahem, ben atzu lahem tzitzit, al kanfed noratam, ben atenu al tzitzit, al kanaf petel tekelye, vehaya lakem letzitzit, urtem oto zakartem et kol mitzvot Adonai, vasitem otam velo tatu raklavovkem, ואחריה כן אשר תנזונים אחריהם למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים אלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתם מארץ מצרים לעולם לאלוקים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדוני אלוהיכם Amen. And the English of that chant. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and bid them that they make them fringes in the borders of their garments throughout all generations, and that they put upon the fringe of the border a thread of blue, and shall be unto you for a fringe, that ye may look upon it, and remember all the commandments of the Lord, and do them, and that ye seek not after your own heart and your own eyes, in pursuit of which ye used to go astray, that ye may remember and do all my commandments, and be holy unto your God. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am the Lord your God. Service continues with our hymn, Shadows of the Evening Hours, hymn number 14, which can be found on page 214.
Shadows of the evening hours fall from the darkening sky upon the fragrance of the flowers, the dews of evening light.
before thy throne, O Lord of heaven, we come at close of day. Look on thy children from on high, and hear us while we pray. The shadows of thy servants, Lord, oh, do not thou despise, but let the incense of our prayers before thy mercy rise. The brightness of the coming light upon the darkness rose. With hopes of future glory, chase the shadows from our souls. Let peace, O Lord, thy peace, O God, upon our souls descend. From midnight fears and perils, thou our trembling hearts defend. Give us a respite from our toil, come and subdue our woes. Through the long day we labor, Lord, oh, give us now repose. Amen.
Service now continues with the Kaddish Leila, and I ask the congregation to stand.
Yitkada v'yitkadosh Shemei Rabbah Yelmad vrachotei v'yamlich malchotei v'yasmach barkanei v'charev mishichei v'chayachon v'yom ekon v'chayelechon bet Yisrael Agalahu bizman karib v'emaru. Amen. Yehesh miraba mevarach le'lam le'am amayit barak v'yishtabach v'etpar v'etroman v'etnasei v'etada v'etlei v'etalosh v'elkutsha beriku Le'lamin kol barchata, shirata, tishbechata, ve'nechamata, amiron bi'alma, ve'maru. Amen.
In this moment of silent communion with thee, O God, a still small voice speaks in the depths of my spirit. It speaks to me of the things I must do to attain holy kinship with thee and to grow in the likeness of thee. I must do my allotted tasks with unflagging faithfulness, even though the eye of no taskmaster is on me. I must be gentle in the face of ingratitude, or when slander distorts my noblest motives. I must come to the end of each day with a feeling that I have used its gifts gratefully and faced its trials bravely. O Lord, help me to be ever more like thee. Holy, for thou art holy. Loving, for thou art loving. Speak to me then, O Lord, as I seek you again and again in the stillness of meditation, and that thy bidding shall at last become for me a hallowed discipline, a familiar way of life, so that I may live on in deeds that bless other lives, and leave behind me the heritage of a good and noble name. Amen. At this point in our program, this is a point for silent devotion, and it is a point that where we close our eyes and we silently thank the Lord with gratitude, even in these times of distress. For many of us who know Wallace and knew Wallace Our lives have been changed by His companionship, by His devotion, and by His presence. So silently now I ask all present to just say your own silent prayer and give thanks for His life and also for yours, and how grateful that you are still here with us today. O my God, guard my tongue from evil and my lips from uttering deceit. And let my soul be silent towards those that curse me. And grant that my soul may be humble as the dust to everyone. Open my heart to receive thy Torah, that my soul may pursue thy commandments. Speedily I beseech thee. Frustrate the devices and destroy the machinations of all those who rise up against me for evil. Grant it for the sake of thy name. Grant it for the sake of thy right hand. Grant it for the sake of thy Torah. Grant it for the sake of thy holiness. O save me with thy right hand and answer me.
May the words of my mouth
and
the meditations of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen.
O say shalom bimramav, urakamav yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru. Amen. You may be seated. I would now like to call upon Val Campbell to give us a Bible reading from the book of Ezekiel.
Sorry. Then he said to me, Mortal, go to the house of Israel and repeat my very words to them. For you are sent not to a people of unintelligible speech and difficult language, but to the house of Israel. Not to the many peoples of unintelligible speech and difficult language, those whose talk you cannot understand. If I sent you to them, they would listen to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Val. I now ask Mr. Afif Lazarus to give a tribute on behalf of Wallace from Friendly Lodge number 239. And I also welcome all the other brethren who are here on his behalf.
Good afternoon, everyone. That better? Good. Excellent. Good afternoon again, everyone. I have been afforded the privilege by Wallace's family of saying a few words on this sad occasion. I am told that this was one of his wishes, for which I am deeply honored. However, he was taught to be cautious, and not wanting anyone to have much of a last word, limited my comments to 5 minutes. I intend to strictly abide by his wishes. First and foremost, I wish to express the sincere and personal condolences of Maggie and myself on Wallace's passing to his sons Vance, Scott, David, and Sian, and the rest of the family, and wish to assure them that all of us here will keep you in our thoughts and prayers as you go through this difficult period. As all of us know, Wallace was popularly and affectionately known as the Flood, with reference to his self-proclaimed prowess at the game of dominoes. He constantly reminded us that he was the greatest thing since the Flood. In truth, he was also popularly and affectionately known to his domino adversaries as the Trickle, a ribbing that he took in spirit in which it was delivered. That was the mettle of the man. He could take as good as he gave. I had the pleasure of knowing Wallace for more years than I care to remember. I first came across him when he was initiated into our mutual lodge, the Friendly Lodge number 239, in 1978, a step that evolved into a deep and abiding love for the fraternity and all that it represented. We became fast friends and collaborated on a number of projects. I particularly remember the part he played, along with the late District Grandmaster Dr. Aubrey Jacobs, of putting on several art and orchid shows for Masonic charities. These shows also gave him the opportunity and the thrill of sharing many prized pieces of his expansive and growing art collection with many who would not otherwise have had the opportunity of seeing them. It is then that I realized that he was on his way to becoming the world's preeminent collector of art, with a particular accent on Jamaica and the Caribbean. I distinctly recall his diligent search for a painting by Albert Huey called The Counting Girl. According to Wallace, the painting was last seen at the IBM Pavilion of the New York World's Fair of the 1964 and 1965 period, after which it seemed to disappear into thin air. After years of searching, he located the painting in an obscure gallery in San Francisco, purchased it, and brought it home. As a companion to his love of art was his love for people and for his brethren. Wallace was generous in the extreme. He never forgot those who were less fortunate, and if he considered you a genuine friend and brother, his bounty was not confined. He did not suffer those he considered fools or hypocrites lightly, and you could always count on him to speak his mind on any and all subjects loudly. There are many instances where during the time that he operated the Lenhap supermarket, many persons would have gone to bed hungry in the evening were it not for his generosity. Also, some took advantage of his kindness and thought that he was not aware. He was passionate about his lodge, his religion, and all the things that he loved and cared for. He was a patron of the arts, vociferous, opinionated, stubborn to a fault, forthright, not afraid to tell it as he saw it, nor to steadfastly defend his opinion on any subject. Wallace was not perfect, nor did he consider himself to be. He, more than most, recognized his faults and deficiencies and conceded that there were many. But he tried his best to maintain honesty in all his dealings and remain steadfast to his principles. Wallace approached his final days with dignity. He was well aware of what awaited him, and the time was short. But instead of moaning, complaining, or asking why, He faced his fate with the knowledge that he has run his course to the best of his ability, thankful for the many blessings bestowed on him by the Almighty. He knew that death had no terrors equal to the stain of falsehood and dishonor. He brought his family into his confidence, encouraging his sons to stick together after his passing and to emulate what was good in his life. We shall miss him, but let us remember his cheerful smile and generosity of character. In the scriptures, we are taught that after the flood appeared a beautiful rainbow, which no trickle has the ability to create. May his rainbow be ever present, and may his soul rest in peace.
Thank you, Afif, on behalf of Wallace's family. I now ask Dr. Natalie McMorris to say a few words.
Hello? Okay. Greetings and good afternoon. Mr. Matalan, wardens, congregants of the Share Shalom, and most honorably, the family of Mr. Wallace Campbell. Thank you all for being here today, and thank you for the great honor of speaking for my friend. There are many stories that I could tell about Mr. Campbell, who I've known all of my life, but there's not enough time in the day to go and start those stories off. But before I begin, in my remembrance of Mr. Campbell, I would like to say to his family here, his sons, and his extended family, that Mr. Campbell was loved. He was loved and appreciated by everyone who knew him and came in contact with him. And I loved him. I loved your father dearly. He was my friend from the longest time that I can remember. And to you, you are the direct keepers. You, his four sons, Vance, David, Keon, Scott. You are the line that would break on continuously and keep his memory alive. We are without his physical presence now, but we have him in you, his sons, and in his grandchildren. So beautiful, so wonderful. You are his living legacy, and we all have him in our memories, and you have him in your souls. People will never forget how Mr. Campbell made them feel. This was not a tepid man. This was a man on fire. He was full of life. He had all of the vitality in every day, and he milked every day to the fullest. He enjoyed life. He enjoyed living it. He enjoyed with a passion food, good conversation, his friends, traveling. Everything was a new adventure to him. He was full of passion. Of his love for art, which was a great love and an abiding love too. A capital A was his love for art. I remember once in a conversation with his late friend, David Boxer, that he said that art enables us to find ourselves and to lose ourselves at the same time. And that was a powerful statement. And that really explained his passion. He never faltered from his love of art and his love of beautiful things. To you, his family, your father was very loved, as I said, and he worked tirelessly to provide the opportunities for you that he never had. He wanted to make sure that you had every opportunity this world could provide, and he worked tirelessly to provide that. To you, his grandchildren, he treasured every moment with you, every activity that you did together, every moment you spent together. To Val, I remember your bar mitzvah. It was his bar mitzvah too. When you spoke, he spoke. He remembered his entrance as a young man into the faith, and he was happy that he could be here to celebrate that day with you. To Scott, when your girls come to their bat mitzvah, you know that your father will be there in spirit. And you know that he enjoys a good to-do. So of course it's going to be a very popping session for the princesses right here. We can rest assured on that. We have all been blessed with such a good family man and such a good man generally. He was not perfect, but who amongst us is? Mr. Campbell was a good man, a generous man, a true friend, and I shall miss him. Assembled friends, I thank you for acknowledging the Campbell tribe. You are all his celebration of his life. You, his brother, sisters, cousins, you are everything to him, and he is everything to you. I'd like to think right now that Mr. Campbell is here in spirit, sitting at the front, of course, looking around and saying, this is a good collection of people. I did well. Many people will walk through our life, but few people will walk into our hearts and our souls. Mr. Campbell did that. I knew him from I was a little girl when Mommy went shopping at Lenhap, and he would hold court at the desk facing the office right across in the supermarket. He was always there to encourage me. I had a voracious appetite for reading, and so did he, and we shared that. And with every one of my accomplishments, he spurred me on and told me that I could do better. I could always achieve. And he said, only your best is good enough. Remember this. In high school, I would come with all of the angst of a teenager complaining about something, and he would listen patiently, and God bless him, he would never lose his patience. And he would say, how is school? And I said, fine, but you know, I think I could get an A+ the next time. And he said, yes, fight on. He was there at my medical school graduation, up front with my mother, of course, because you know Mr. Campbell never took a back seat anywhere. And then, as the procession was about to begin, there was a torrential downpour, and all hell broke loose, and everybody had to scamper into the assembly hall. In the topsy-turvy, I wondered where was everyone, and then I saw Mr. Campbell, of course, at the front, holding a seat for my mother and saying, come on, because I was the only graduate, apparently. I will tell you this as a story about Mr. Campbell. When I was studying abroad in England, I hit some financial hurdles. And Mr. Campbell contacted me and said, do not worry about a thing, Betty. Everything will be all right. You just set your mind at your work. And in 2/2, the bursar called me and said, everything is sorted out. You are all covered. And Betty, you are his pride and joy. And that is the story of how Public Health England, everyone knows me, not as Natalie, my birth name, but as Betty. Mr. Campbell's always greeted me as Betty, or my pride and joy, or my Betty. Either one would do. It was my highest honor to offer medical care and advice to Mr. Campbell through the years as a patient, because he was a dear friend of mine, and there was no greater honor to a friend than to be able to care for them. On what would prove to be his last Hanukkah with us, I carried his gift, as I had done since I had been a little girl, with my card that I made for him. He read it through, and right there he smiled, and he said, you know, Betty, I have kept all of your cards, from the first card that you ever gave me many years ago. Mr. Campbell was as tender as he could be tough. He was a pragmatist, but he was a very good man. His love and admiration for Carlton Alexander informed his life, and he knew about the transformative power of education, which he championed with everyone he met. His experience at Bowling Green University was an incalculable and truly valuable experience for him. He did not hold on to anger. He was a faithful and true friend. He spoke directly to you without any filter, whether you liked it or not, making sure that he got his point across. It was never in spite. It was never in animus. It was always to make you better. He did not put off for tomorrow what he could do today. He was a man who seized the day and lived the carpe diem. You must never postpone anything. You must always embrace everything and live life to its fullest. On the Sunday that would be his last, he was with his loved ones, surrounded by his sons, his sister. He was there. And I was fortunate enough to have returned from the country where I was working. And I was there to hold his hand, and he squeezed mine. And only minutes later, he passed. If I had to sum it up, I would say this of Mr. Campbell, that I shall miss our chats. I shall miss his advice, his leadership, his guidance, and I shall truly miss my friend. But I know that while he may have left us in body, Mr. Campbell is not actually gone until the ripples that he has put forth in the universe die away, for what we as individuals do in this life echoes for an eternity. I thank you for this honor, and I thank God for our friend.
Dr. Betty, if you don't mind me calling you that. For Wallace to have had a friend like you, I have never met you before, but I will say to you, you are one amazing friend. God bless you. And now ask a business associate of Wallace to come forward and say a few words. Mr. Jimmy Rhodes.
Good afternoon, everyone. I need some reinforcements here. I consider it a privilege to do a brief tribute to my friend Wallace. In fact, I later on understood that this was one of his requests. We go back for probably 40 years, and the significant thing is that we met in an adversarial relationship. And that grew into solid friendship and respect and friendship. And my condolences to the family on the passing of a great man. I prepared some brief remarks, and they're going to be brief because I've been asked to be brief. But more importantly, it has to be brief because if we start talking about Wallace this afternoon, we'll be here all night and not repeat one thing. Wallace, like most of us, was a normal human being with human weaknesses and challenges, who had failures and successes, made mistakes, learned from some and didn't learn from others. He was a grateful guy, very grateful, and had a strong self-esteem and sense of being. Remember him as a multifaceted, eclectic person who drew knowledge from a variety of sources. He was aware, informed, agile in thought, relished and always had time for a good debate on whatever the subject may be. He was forthright in these exchanges, strong in his opinion, but did not engage in creating alternative facts and new or alternative truths. He well understood the distinction between opinions and facts. He was very proud of his heritage, of being a Jew and what it meant to him, and of Judaism, and never failed to let this known. His knowledge of the history and evolution of the Jewish people and Judaism was deep and extensive, the outcome of his deep commitment and constant research on both. And he never failed to speak about them. Such was his passion. What was somewhat astounding was that Wallace's knowledge of Christianity, its roots and evolution, was just as impressive. And it often seemed that one of his greatest joy and challenge was to engage people of the Christian religion in protracted, good-natured debates on Judaism and Christianity, often with members of the Christian clergy in his supermarket. I need not tell you who won these debates. You all knew Wallace. But I got the impression that someone failed due to exhaustion, and it wasn't Wallace. He was also passionate about and proud of his country, Jamaica. He was served his country very well. He was a justice of the peace for as long as anyone can remember. He served for many years on various statutory bodies and was a long-standing member of the board of the National Gallery of Jamaica, among many other local institutions, including educational institutions. A few years ago, you'll recall, he was recognized by the country when he was confirmed with the National Award of Distinction, Commander, for his contribution to business and philanthropy. And this leads us to his other passions, and you heard about them: business, philanthropy, and probably the love of his life, art. His approach in these areas was characteristic of Wallace: intense, committed, and always in search of excellence. His business career started with that iconic Jamaican company, Grace Kennedy, where he rose up the ranks up to senior management before embarking on his own business. He was a Grace man all his life and remained eternally grateful for the opportunities Grace afforded him in his development. Wallace frankly and often attributed his business successes to Grace Kennedy and his mentor, Carlton Alexander. And he was grateful for those opportunities. And he always included the fact that they, Carlton and Grace, sent him to university in the United States. As we know, he ran a successful supermarket business for many years and was, for what seems eons, he was president of the Retailers Association, an organization that had great relevance and currency in the turbulent years of the 70s through to the 90s, when price controls, tight margins, and market regulation were the order of the day. As president of the Retailers Association, he proved to be a formidable negotiator in his quest to protect his organization's interests. After retiring from the retail business about 16 years ago, and I say retiring in quotation, he devoted his time to his other passion, art, which he had been involved in for a long time and had accumulated an outstanding collection. In fact, Wallace frequently spoke about the fact that as a youth, he was an artist, and he wouldn't fail to take out his first sketches, which he still has, and show you. They were copies of other people's works, but they were great. So he had a calling, and he worked on it, and he became probably the collector par excellence in Jamaica and in this part of the world. The extent and quality of his collections are well known in the art world far and wide, and his gallery at Seaview Avenue became his office and the base until a few months ago. Seaview was very special, as apart from art, it was the place where Wallace held court, and he held court on a daily basis. If you didn't have plenty of time to spare, it wasn't advisable to go to Seaview, as Wallace would engage you in a variety of discussions from politics to philosophy and everything in between. Except on domino days, when he would go to his other passion, dominoes. You heard this, the self-proclaimed greatest domino player of the world, the greatest thing since the flood. Hence, flood, which is still on his car as a license plate. How good was Wallace, we would never really ever know. When the question was asked, how many six loves did you get? Here, an honest, straightforward guy couldn't remember the score from last week, not to mention the week before or the month before. And the only way to get around him was to ask for the records that he maintained should be kept. And when we look at the records, we say, but Wallace, you accumulated a number of losses and six loves. What happened? Oh, I was playing with Tony and he's a domino dunce. I was playing with Francis Delgado and he doesn't know anything about dominoes. I was playing with the other guy, somebody who kept posing, and somebody would say, but Wallace, you told him to pose, and when he objected, he says, go ahead and pose. Wallace's retort was, let's change the subject. I'm retiring from dominoes. I can't waste my time with these domino dunces. Then you try to find Wallace on a Saturday and you call him. Wallace, I can't find you. Where are you? Boy, I'm in St. Thomas, or someplace playing dominoes. And it's the best thing that ever happened to me, to be out in the country playing dominoes. So what are you doing now? Preparing for Wednesday, because Wednesday is my turn, and I have a bag of things to do, the food, the drinks, the that, the this. But who is coming? All the domino dunces. But he was happy with that. Here was a guy who liked to have fun. This was Wallace in full flight. 3 weeks before he passed, we sat on his balcony, and his major preoccupation was the book about his art collection that he has been speaking about for 20 years that never got started. Everything was okay. He had accepted his fate, he had come to terms with his mortality. But the book is the problem. The second problem was the boxing gym at Victoria.